Hello and welcome to Premier League All Access from talkSPORT with me, Sam Matterface, talkSPORT's European football expert, Kevin Hatchard, and the great Republic of Ireland international midfielder, Chelsea captain, legend, Aston Villa legend, all-round great guy, talkSPORT breakfast host, Andy Townsend is in the building. Here's what's coming up on the show.
Can I just put it out there? I don't think what he said about Jadon Sancho, one was particularly critical, and I also didn't think that it provoked the response that it got from the player.
But I think if he starts making compromises and he starts abandoning that idea that it's his way or the highway, he's going to be in trouble really, really quickly.
Pressure will build if results don't come.
I think Liverpool could be a serious threat to the teams who are going to win this league.
Are we really talking about Tottenham? Because they used to make you fall asleep. Now they're keeping you awake late into the night. But I'll tell you who else I think will be in the thick of it. Everton.
As diligent and dogged as they were without the ball, I thought were utterly hopeless on the ball.
Hello, gentlemen. Thank you very much for coming.
Hi, Sam.
You all right?
Yes, we're good. Thank you, pal.
This is a new gig for you, the Premier League All Access.
I'm looking forward to it. No. Thank you, mate, for inviting me. I'm always happy to talk about the best league in the world. There's plenty always to get stuck into.
Absolutely, a lot to get into this weekend. What have you been doing this weekend? What have you been?
Well, I didn't realise we were going to talk about the Bundesliga, so I'm really pleased about that. Now that Andy's mentioned it. Yes, I was doing a mix, some Bundesliga, but also Everton Arsenal, which was, I'd love to tell you, was a thrilling game.
Yes,
but it really wasn't.
We had a real sort of this is really boring. So maybe we will do a little bit of it, but we had a really boring chat about laws of the game and what constitutes deliberate play. For a little while afterwards, didn't we? Me and you in the canteen.
Wasn't
it was so sad, so nerdy, and how we could sort of argue different points of the clarifications and the guidance. Anyway, we won't get into too much of that because we'll bore you to tears. But what won't bore you to tears is the chat we've got coming up from Old Trafford, from the Vitality Stadium, how Liverpool got on away from home. Finally, they've started to win on the road. Does that mean they will be title challengers this year? You never know. I tell you what, though, I'm not sure Manchester United will be. Manchester United 1, Brighton 3 was the full-time score at Old Trafford yesterday, and the story of the weekend, I think. And Erik Ten Hag, all of a sudden, has started to feel a little bit of heat, I think.
He has, from obviously a lot of stuff with some of his players off the field and various issues and how he's handled them. Can I just put it out there? I don't think what he said about Jadon Sancho, one was particularly critical. And I also didn't think that it provoked the response that it got from the player. So I just want to make that clear, that where I stand there, I think the manager absolutely reserves the right, if he needs to, if within what we would class, Kev, as the laws of, or the rules of maybe acceptability, Sam, on a personal level. You know, if you start going into someone's personal details and really going, that's stepping out of line. He criticised his player. And Sancho responded, I think, in the worst possible way. We've all had stick-off managers. We've all taken it face-to-face, some worse than others, I understand that. But I was a bit disappointed that Sancho responded as he did, because the only way the best players get themselves out of a mess is by getting out on that park and stepping up. And he hasn't done that. And I just wanted I felt a little uncomfortable for Ten Hag during that period when people were saying, hold on a minute, you don't throw your players under a bus. Come on, he didn't throw him under a bus.
He said he didn't train properly.
He said he hadn't trained well for a week. Get on with it and deal with it and respond to that.
The issue is here, and we must talk about Brighton, we will do. We'll focus on Brighton because Brighton were brilliant yesterday, and they were brilliant despite the fact they made 6 changes to their team and largely played with players that you wouldn't expect to have been in the lineup at Old Trafford. But the story is Manchester United, and the story is how Ten Hag is dealing with his players and how he's going to deal with them going forward, because he was brought in as a disciplinarian because the culture at the club was perceived to be not quite right. So if you do that, you've got to expect that he's going to lay the law down, which is what he's done with Jadon Sancho. He's done it with Marcus Rashford previously. He's done it with Ronaldo. And he's won those battles. But at the same time, he's left himself short in terms of attacking talent. And whether or not he could have got the best out of Sancho, none of us know because he hasn't done so far. No one has so far at Old Trafford.
Yeah.
But how does he get himself out of this situation, I suppose? He can't keep ruling with an iron fist. Eventually, he's got to start putting results on the board. Otherwise, people will start asking questions about him.
I think you can rule with an iron fist if you've got the wins to go with it. Because, Andy, you'll know as a player, you know, you'll follow a coach if what he's doing can get you results. You'll follow them. If you can show them it works, then they'll follow you. And largely last season, even though he had to make some compromises, it did work. But there's also been another reset at the early part of this season because they've now got a goalkeeper who allows them to do different things in build-up to what they were doing last season. You have this kind of weird compromise where they had to go a bit longer because David De Gea just isn't as adept as Onana with the ball at his feet. But what then makes that difficult is Onana, I don't think, even though he played well against Brighton with some excellent saves, don't think we've seen the real Onana yet. I think he's made more mistakes than usual. I don't think he's been that big presence that he had been for Inter, getting them to the Champions League final last season. So there are a lot of little things that aren't quite working. Players who I think have dipped in form, lots of injuries as well. Defensively, they don't look solid at all. The balance in midfield's not right. And so he's firefighting all the time. But I think if he starts making compromises and he starts abandoning that idea that it's his way or the highway, he's going to be in trouble really, really quickly.
Do you know, at some point, Sam, I think as a coach, you have to trust a group of players, and I know the squads nowadays are so big, and Pep can rotate because he can and he does, and they win everything, so he can do it. But I think when you're in a bit of a hole, when you're in a bit of a rut, and United are in one, he's got to pick a team, work with it night and day, and trust it and play it again. And to a degree, play it again. And if it means you play them on a Saturday, you have Champions League midweek, and then you do it, you roll out the same team again. Fergie used to do this. You know, the game has changed an awful lot, but some things don't change. Confidence, winning matches breeds confidence. Confidence comes from partnerships and relationships and absorbing that fine detail that you get and putting it together and making it work. That's how confidence comes. And United, in this, where they are at the moment, in this bit of a rut, if I was Ten Hag, and I'm sure people around him are saying, whilst it's tempting to go out with those three, in with these three, out with him, this one, stick with something that you think you know and that you're going to work with. It might not come off straight away. Stick with it, and I guarantee you the quality is there and things might turn for them.
Yeah, I think tactically there's a few problems.
Yep.
Definitely, no
There
doubt,
is.
especially in that midfield area. But I think he's been hampered by the fact that he's had unavailability issues. Yeah. Mount hasn't been available for a long time.
Correct.
Arabat's come into the club and he's not ready to start yet, which is an issue for them because I think he plays slightly different. Casemiro's form has been dreadful. I mean, switching off for the first goal, we didn't even have a clue where Danny Welbeck was in that match yesterday, which is a real problem for them. But the pressure will build eventually. They've invested so much in Ten Hag, right? So we were talking about the recruitment earlier and about how many players have been bought in from the Eredivisie and who have played with him previously. So he's in control of who's coming into the club. There's no doubt about that. 2/3 of the players have either played with him or played in the Eredivisie before. So there's a big Dutch influence in this group now, and it's a big influence from him in the group. But pressure will build if results don't come. They've got Bayern in midweek. That's not going to be an easy game.
No, it isn't. And I think you've got a Bayern team that's nowhere near top gear yet, but what they do have is game changers all over the park. So Harry Kane has got 4 goals in 4 games already in the Bundesliga. That's equal to club record. So he's playing well. Leroy Sané is playing as well as I've seen him play for Bayern, full stop. And he's playing well for Germany as well, got the winning goal against France. So you've got lots of threats out wide. You've got Joshua Kimmich who can do damage. Goretzka scored a goal on Friday against Leverkusen. So even though it's not quite clicking for Bayern, they can do enough to expose Manchester United. And I think without the ball, I still think there's a major issue for United. You see it in lots of little moments in games when they're walking instead of sprinting full power.
The wing players, especially, the tracking back for wing players has been poor.
And you can't get away with that at this level anymore. You just can't do it because, especially when you want to press, when you want to have a scheme without the ball, if one goes and the rest don't follow him in, you're dead in the water because a good team like Brighton will just play their way through you. And I think what was most alarming probably from that game is that Brighton made quite a simple tactical switch. Not an easy one to do, but started creating those wide overloads, and United didn't seem to adjust to it at all.
Because United played that narrow diamond in midfield, clogged up that central area where we know that Brighton is strong, pushed them wide, and then couldn't deal with the fact that the ball had gone wide.
You know, the best coaches are able to do that. I was at Wolves Liverpool at the weekend, and I saw first half Liverpool, by their standards, shambolic.
Yep.
Really desperately poor.
He admitted that to me afterwards, actually.
Did he?
Yeah.
Yeah. You was there, Sam. Of course you were there. Second half, a tweet to the team. We saw Robertson and Joe Gomez 30 yards further forward. Szoboszlai and Curtis Jones sit there, and then Salah coming off the line. Diaz came on and coming off the line. All of a sudden they thickened up the middle of the park. So Wolves weren't able to pick the ball up and counter, and then their better quality absolutely come out on top. Really smart move, and I saw it work. I haven't seen that from Ten Hag. It must have happened, because I haven't seen every game and every minute of every game.
Yeah.
It must have happened, but I've not noticeably seen something and I've thought, smart move, brilliant, really like that. That is working, and that's not only is it working, it's getting the best out of him, and it's getting the best out of him.
If you speak to Steve McLaren, he will tell you that one of the great things about Ten Hag and his reputation in Ajax was reading a problem before it became a problem and making the change proactively. And that certainly didn't happen in the game on Saturday, and not even a reactive change in the game on Saturday, which was a real issue. And once they conceded the goal, first one okay, the second one they went to pieces.
Yeah.
They just crumbled, and that happens far too often. So when does the pressure start to come on him? I suppose this is the question, because you've got Bayern in midweek, Burnley away on Saturday night, away from home Saturday night. It's not an easy game, and then you got Tuesday night in the cup against Crystal Palace. I mean, what's the situation here if they lose all three of those?
The pressure will build, but the problem is exactly what you said. If you look at most smart football clubs, they are operating in conjunction with the manager to a certain extent, but largely independently. So what you want is a situation where if you have to sack the manager, the ship keeps going in the same direction. But what they've done is they've gone, we've brought in Erik ten Hag. We'll give him pretty much everything he wants. And so now you've got the same problem they had with Mourinho and other managers and Solskjaer. What you end up with is you bring in a handful of the players they wanted, and you have this Frankenstein's monster of a squad which is just made up of a mishmash of different
You get rid of him now, and all of a sudden
players.
someone inherits his team, and you go for the same process again. So they can't do that.
There's no logic to doing that at all. United, to get out of this scenario where they find themselves, of course the ownership, something has to be done, something will happen with that at some point when none of us have got a clue, and nor has he. So all he can possibly do is focus on what he can control, and that is a group of players, and he has got to try and cultivate, not just a culture. He's trying to do that. We know that he's trying to cultivate a culture at the club of good, hard-working pros that don't step out of line and everyone toes the line. We know that that's what he's about. What he's now got to try and create is players that are able to excel in their positions. On any given day, Manchester United, we know Bruno can nick you a goal. We know Rashford can step in off the line, smash one in the top corner. We know a lot of good things that they can do. But when it's going tough, like you both have just said, when it's not happening for them, they don't have much to drop back on for me, United.
Well, it's not enough structure, is there? A lot of it seems to be off the cuff. Let's
Yeah, it
trust
does.
our flair players to come up with those moments you've just mentioned.
Yeah, and I don't see the substance there when Brighton are getting on top, when Brighton go in front. And it's difficult, Old Trafford. Not only do you need talented players, you need players, you need men that have got the character to handle playing in that stadium in front of 70,000 when they're moaning and groaning and it's not happening. That, Sam, isn't something you can go and buy off the shelf from the Eredivisie or Ligue 1 or anywhere like that. You can't do that. Players aren't used to that and accustomed to that. They have to be able to handle that. Not all of them, I don't think, can.
We have to talk about Brighton because we've talked a lot about Manchester United, but Brighton were absolutely terrific in this game. 6 changes from their previous win against Newcastle. They've gone to Newcastle and won. They've beaten Manchester United away from home. They've had a terrific start to the season. They've got their first European game this week on Thursday against AEK Athens. It's a great time to be a seagull, isn't it? especially if you're a devout follower of Roberto De Zerbi. We've talked about smart football clubs and the way they run their business is exactly that, very smart. But he does make a difference as well because he shoots for the stars.
He's incredibly smart. I mean, you look at the football, even going back to when he was at Benevento, for example, who were he got them into, they were in Serie A, and he was playing incredibly expansive attacking football, and people were like, but this is a team that's supposed to dig in and try and grind their way to stay in the division. Then he went to Sassuolo, not a particularly fashionable club. Again, how can we play really attacking football? How can we, make the most of what we've got? And he's just carried that on. The system is the star. Everybody is at ease with what they're doing. He's built on the work of Graeme Potter, which I think was very important.
He acknowledges that.
And he is taking it on a step. So, but I think this is where it jars with Ten Hag and his situation. I think he's come across a set of players that are receptive to ideas, that understand how those tactical nuances work and can implement them really, really well. But the other thing he does is he makes players better.
And is it fair to say as well, Kev, if you're a Brighton player, and I don't want this to sound like it's unkind, are you doing all of that in a pressure-free zone?
Well, sort of definitely less pressure than if you're playing at Old Trafford.
They've created that pressure-free zone by being very, very good at what they do.
I think he's quite demanding, though.
Yes.
Yes.
He puts pressure on you, but I know what you mean in terms of with the supporters.
Do you know what I mean? When they turn up at their ground, every time a pass is misplaced, it's greeted with never mind, bad luck, hard luck, and a round of applause. And it's just because that's what Brighton are. It's kind of the club that's been built on a positive vibe, on a feeling of where they had been for such a long time to now where they are with this new owner who's very smart, who's very forward thinking, with coaches like this. When Marcelo Bielsa brought Leeds back into the Premier League, that first season we all went, oh wow, this is like unbelievable, this is brilliant. Then the wheels fell off, right? And what amazes me with Brighton, the wheels don't seem to fall off or haven't looked like falling off yet.
Even when they have major departures.
I don't know, and that is the trick. For Leeds, they were everyone's second favourite team. They were mine for a year. I thought I could watch them every week. Yeah. And then the following year, I was thinking they're going to get beat 4-0 every game if they're not careful.
But De Zerbi is more pragmatic because the difference between Bielsa's an ideologue. He plays the same way, and if you don't like it, tough. This is how we're going to play football. So you've got that man-to-man stuff all over the pitch, and he will just rely on his players being able to cope with it. And they go to the big guns, and they get absolutely smashed. De Zerbi doesn't work that way. Right. He has his general way that he wants to play. He wants to draw the opposition to him, hit them on the counter, generate those kind of transitions themselves, take those risks. However, he will look at the opposition and go, right, well, we can't do what we normally do there because they're just going to smash us. So actually, we'll change it. And he did that in the game when he went, right, this isn't working through the middle. We'll get the wide overloads instead. He's always got different plans within the same structure. Bielsa never had that. Bielsa's amazing. Like, I could listen to him all day, but he only has one way that he wants to play.
Question for you, Kev, Sam. How does he get that message onto the field when you say, when something's happening and it's not working, right? It's not easy for a coach to stand there and bark out
I don't really answer that question, but I'm going to guess that he already has it planned.
Right.
We've got plan A, B, C. I know, probably a bit like, when you've got a quarterback, an NFL quarterback who's got 40 different plays in the back of their head. He'll call a different play from the sideline, pass the message on, and then go.
I think
I can only imagine it's something like that.
But he's got some really smart footballers in that team. Yeah. Because Pascal Gross, I must admit, I commentated on him years ago when he was at a team called Ingolstadt.
Before they got relegated.
Before they got relegated, they played some awful football. And Ralph Hasenhüttl was there, and they scratch. You know the Al Pacino thing, the Any Given Sunday speech, like scratch and fight for every inch. It was that every single week. Yeah. But he had his moments, and he was thought of as quite a good technical player. But you looked at it and thought, I don't get it. He's not being able to really bring anything to games. This Pascal Gross is beyond belief.
He can play anywhere in this. He can literally play, that boy, anywhere in the team. If you had to play as a 9, he's not going to be your greatest 9, but he'll do it and probably nick you a goal. He plays anywhere across the middle of the park. He's now sitting here quite deep and spraying it about from there. And he's
always scoring goals against Manchester United. He loves it. He absolutely loves it. The starting lineup for Brighton cost 16.2 million combined, which is about 1/3 of what United paid for Jadon Sancho. Let's move on to the rest of the weekend's football, and starting with the comeback kings from Saturday. Wolverhampton Wanderers won, Liverpool 3. Andy and I were both at this game. They failed to win 13 of 19 last season away from home, Liverpool. They didn't win any of the 12-30s that they played last year at Liverpool, yet they did both of those things on Saturday afternoon. But it definitely wasn't easy.
It wasn't easy, not for the first time this season. They've had to come from trailing to produce a performance to come back and win. Which is always a lovely thing to have in your team when you go behind, no one panic, keep going, and then this is where the best coaches earn the big bucks, and that's why they're hired like they are, because when you've got a coach like Jurgen Klopp, who I think is brilliant, up to half-time his team were absolutely awful.
Yeah.
I mean, Wolves should have gone in, Sam, shouldn't they? 3,
Yeah.
Kev. They should have gone in 3.
Everyone's still sitting there thinking, how has Matthias Cunha not scored?
Mate,
Well, and this has always been the thing with him. I've seen him a lot in German football. He was at Leipzig, he was at Hertha. He was never a volume goal scorer.
Never scored loads of goals
Never a
at
volume
Hertha.
goal scorer.
from centre circle, Kev, to the edge of the box, carrying the ball. I doubt there's a better player in the league. He is electric pace, isn't he, Sam? And he gets you on the edge of your seat. He really does. But they should have been 3 up. Klopp comes in, he goes, Alexis McAllister, you're World Cup winner, I know you're great, get off. Put someone else on straight away. I think he brought Luis Diaz on, tweaked the system, changed the system completely, and all of a sudden, right from the start of the second half, Liverpool on the halfway line with the ball. Wolves couldn't get out, just a matter of time, and in the end they run out very comfortable victors. And that's what you want from your coach. That's what you need. When a team's struggling, you need him to see it, act upon it and change it, and he did that brilliantly.
But also Mo Salah's changed. He's always been a creative player, but this willingness to play more of a role to assist players now.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got more assists in 2023, I think, than any other player in the top 5 leagues. And he's got 12 assists in 2023, involved in all 3 of those goals. And sometimes a star player, just by being there, can create for other players, and he's just got the weight of pass for Elliott's. I know it got own goal. I mean, how miserly is that to take it away? I get it.
Yes.
Let's take that away from Harvey Elliott, but the weight on the layoff was outstanding.
Yeah.
He's just a terrific footballer.
Even the Cody Gakpo one. Gakpo applies the finishing touch, gets them back on level terms, and literally, as soon as he knocked it in the back of the net and he's had a little celeb, off you come, son.
Away.
He goes straight off the field, Kev, and on comes Nunez and Harvey Elliott. And again, I think Liverpool could be a serious threat to the teams who are going to win this league.
I was going to ask you that because they haven't played well. They're not at their best. They haven't got their functioning midfield. They've had to chop and change that defence all season so far.
Yeah.
Only in the first 2 games have they named the same back 4.
Yeah.
They've never managed to be able to have the same midfield because of the issues that they've had. So this is a team still very much being rebuilt on the fly. And when I spoke to Jurgen Klopp after the game, he said, we don't know what we can achieve because we don't know where we are yet because we're still putting together the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah.
And until we've done that, we don't know what we're going to be able to achieve. But even the fact that he said that to me, I thought to myself, when this team clicks,
yes,
you're
it's
going to
dangerous.
Be there.
It's dangerous. I don't think, Sam, playing Alexis McAllister as
Not
the
as a holder.
6, I don't think that's going to work for him course and distance. The odd game, of course, and he's a very accomplished footballer. He had a nightmare at the weekend.
Szoboszlai a little bit deeper worked.
Szoboszlai, I think he is a proper player because he's tall and he's elegant, but he's powerful, and he looks like he plays with some authority, Kev, doesn't he?
Will he learn in that Red Bull school at Salzburg first and then Leipzig how you act when you don't have the ball? Because if you're not prepared to press and close people down in those teams,
he does that brilliantly.
You don't play. Doesn't matter how good you are in the attacking sense, if you're not willing to be a two-way player, you simply don't play. So we learn all that. I do think Endo's got a role to play in the fullness of time because the one thing he is is somebody who really enjoys the defensive side of the game.
Okay.
He's a tackler. He doesn't look the biggest, but he's pretty good in the air. The numbers will tell you that. And he's somebody that just has a nose for danger.
Yeah.
And he's the kind of guy that will break up play, get the others moving, and away they go.
If once they recover that, Sam, and whichever the personnel are, once they recover those sit-in players, sit-in central midfielders, and they get back to those guys up top, the three of them up there, plus Robertson and Trent. I mean, I know Trent now, his role has kind of been morphed into something a little different. We'll see exactly where that goes. But I would have thought second half, Jurgen Klopp on the bus going back, or the plane going back to Liverpool, would have thought that I really like what I saw there. They looked dangerous. They were tough to break down. Every time Wolves countered, it was in the main. It was negated pretty quickly, and they were back on the front foot. And I think he would have liked what he's seen there.
Yeah, I think Gary O'Neill liked what he saw in the first half.
Yeah.
Because I thought they played quite well,
Very well.
Wanderers. In fact, you could probably argue, I think some Wolves fans, so I hear, and I was on the train with a couple of Wolves fans coming back from the game, and they were quite positive, and they were like, they bought on Nunez, they bought on Luis Diaz.
It's terrifying, isn't it?
At the end of the day, that changed the game, and we can sort of accept it. But at the same time, there was one or two suggesting that they were a little bit too defensive in the second half. I think you're going to get that with
just run out of legs.
Exactly.
They just
and
run
if you
out
take
of
off
gas.
your best players because they haven't got the deepest of squad, it is going to weaken them, and that's what happened in the game. And I was speaking to a couple of the coaching staff afterwards, and they were saying, the changes killed us because we have to make changes. Our best Bellegarde was fantastic actually in the game, played well, but he was cream crackered after 60 minutes. He couldn't run, so he had to come off. But I think they've played well in 4, or probably all 5 of their games. They've lost 4 of them.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's promising or concerning, really.
I think they'll be okay. I think you can see the idea. He's trying to put a structure in there. I do think they've got that dash of quality with Cunha. It's just about finding a way to turn that into goals, and I think that will come from others. It won't come from him.
It's going to have to.
Yeah, it's going to have to. The one I think is critical, the one that always impresses me when I see him play, and it seems a bit strange because they conceded 3 goals, Kilman, for me...
Played better, I think. I think they've been a little bit disappointed with him locally, from what I understand.
But I feel like
he played really
there's
well.
a really good defender there, and I think the fact that they managed to keep him, I think is going to be quite important in the fullness of time.
And if the goalkeeper doesn't make that mistake where he kicks the ball out and it's like a punt return that comes back
just
down the other
just
side.
hang on to it. Give him a breather. You've just been defending.
You're making it harder for Liverpool, aren't you?
Pretty much non-stop. And I can understand, Sam. Sometimes the goalies, they get it and then they see someone sprinting away. I mean, it would have been.
Wasn't on, was it?
It wasn't on at all, and he's dropped it straight to Robertson, and then he's ended up in the back of the net.
He was super last season. I feel like he's just been a bit more jittery this season for whatever reason.
Quite like it.
His numbers.
He's made a couple of big saves. I think he did quite well against Crystal Palace. His quick releases were really good against Crystal Palace.
Yeah.
And then on Saturday, he didn't really do that. And then when he did try to do it, he gave it away, and it was like, it is. I understand what you mean.
But his numbers in those first few months when he first got
outstanding,
there, crazy.
Yeah. Hardest part for Gary as a young coach who did really well at Bournemouth, didn't he? And then he's bounced out of that job, and I think he's done exactly the right thing as a young coach, bounced straight back into another one. Toughest part for him. You don't know who he's going to have from one little 6-month period to the next. He literally won't know what's coming in and what's going out, what's staying and what's not. You mentioned Kilman and Kevin. There's every chance that he'll be the next one to go out the door.
Yeah, just on a 5-year contract, doesn't he? But
it's just the way it is, and you just don't know. And I think that's going to be the difficulty for Gary when he starts getting a tap on the shoulder and people say, "Look, that one's going in a month's time." What and this one's you're going to have this one coming in, and this one, and it's not easy that way when you're not really in control of that.
I do like the way he talks, and I like the fact that he turned around and said on Saturday, look, we played quite well. We've done all right all season, really. But you've got to win games. And ultimately, if you're not winning games, you're going to find yourself under pressure. So they go into the next game, which is against Luton, knowing that really they've got to get a victory on the board. So we'll see what happens there. Liverpool not the only ones who managed to turn around a deficit and turn it into a victory at the weekend. Tottenham beat Sheffield United by 2-1, and everybody's in love with Ange Postecoglou. Best start to a season in 58 years. They had 28 shots during the game, 10 on target. Are we really talking about Tottenham? Because they used to make you fall asleep. Now they're keeping you awake late into the night.
I was in Germany very early Sunday morning, and I was waiting for the flight. The flight had come in, and so you wait for everybody to empty out, and then you get the flight. And I saw 2 people walk past me with Germany Spurs on their polo shirts on the back. I've very rarely seen 2 happier people. They were beaming from ear to ear, massive Spurs tattoos all down their arms, beaming from ear to ear. And I just thought, how many of those nice flights have they had under Conte, under Nuno, under Mourinho? And you just think, yes, there was some good results. Obviously, Conte, season before last, ended up qualifying for the Champions League, terrific. But it's quite grim at times, some of the football. And you just think, well, actually, this is supposed to be about these moments. This is supposed to be about entertainment.
Absolutely.
That is half the joy of it.
Do you know, Kev, Sam, I've done so many shows recently just prior to Harry Kane leaving. And where every Tottenham fan coming on, he won't leave, he won't go, and if he goes, we've had it, and we can't operate without him, and all that sort of talk, you know. And from just being in the game for as long as I have and seeing this scenario unfold before, when people leave your club, it opens up other avenues, it opens up other opportunities for different types of players. And now we're seeing Maddison, we're seeing other people look like they... Bissouma, none of us could understand why Conte wouldn't play him. And it's even more perplexing when you see how well he's playing now.
Brilliant. And just a little chat from Ange Postecoglou changed the whole thing.
Yeah, and Postecoglou's got this lovely understated kind of authority about him. You wouldn't want to mess with him, would you?
No.
You know, you wouldn't want to. You wouldn't want to take him on.
He's friendly, but he's not your friend.
Exactly.
Apparently
That's
he's not
the
very
thing,
friendly.
isn't it?
He's friendly around the players, but he's not too close to them.
And he shouldn't be.
He's not going to go up to them and give them a hug. He's not tactile.
And
like
that's how he's
Pochettino.
always been. He's always, if you listen to the guys who've worked with him at previous clubs, he's always had that distance.
Yeah. And
that,
that,
I think it is important.
I admire him even more, having heard that, Kev, because I think that's crucial for a manager to have in your back pocket when you come in, when it's not gone well, and you come into the dressing room and you slam the door. Players need to be sitting there thinking, what is he going to say? What is he going to do? Some of the worst things you can ever be said by your manager when they're coming after a game is, see you Monday. Because, and that's
Think
it.
about it the whole weekend.
And then they walk out.
Yeah.
And then you're laying there all weekend going, or you're sitting there going home and you're thinking, well, I'm probably going to get a load of grief Monday. I know he will, and I know he will, and I know that. And you don't know what's going to happen, Sam. Yeah. And you all turn up on Monday morning, and then the fingers start getting pointed and things start getting sorted. And I like that. You don't have to empty out every time in front of all your players and let them know exactly how you feel. Sometimes holding stuff in I think is a really nice tool for a manager to have.
And his way of managing and is his way of sort of keeping the players calm and insisting that they keep doing the things that they're doing, even when they're 1-0 down against Sheffield United in the 98th minute of the game. The reason why they had the stunning finale, which actually surpassed their own record of the latest ever Premier League winner, which was a 95th minute goal against Leicester, I think, in 2002, which is quite some turnaround. But his ability to sort of keep that sort of lid on it, I think he said something like, well, you don't really jump around in the technical area, Ange. And he said, well, if I go to a movie and I see a great scene, I don't just get up and start having a party.
But what I loved about that afterwards as well was that he's fairly calm, but when he got asked, should people start getting carried away? Should fans be... And he went, yeah, let them. Why wouldn't you? He said, that's what it's about. The fans, we won't, but the fans can do what they like. Why wouldn't they want a bit of joy in their lives? Why wouldn't they want to dream of finishing as high as they possibly
Quick
can?
word on Paul Heckingbottom. We think that there's a bit of pressure coming that way.
There's bound to be. There's bound to be pressure on Paul, and again, it's tough. It's such a merciless league in that respect. If things are, and then I don't know where they go next, Sam. I've no idea. Sheffield United, I don't know, but it's
reports are they might turn to Chris Wilder again.
I could see that. I could see that.
But they lost their best player. I mean, Iliman Ndiaye was
with
a
about
massive
2 days to go
source
before the start of the
goals
season.
and assists, and off to Marseille he went.
I could see that happening. Really tough for Paul. And, listen, with a couple of minutes to go the other day, he would have been thinking to himself, we're going to get up and running, And then all of a sudden, in a flash, it's been snatched out of his hand. Tough, just have to keep going, head down, keep believing, and work even harder than they have been.
OK, well, Saturday was incredibly dramatic. Sunday was not. Bournemouth 0, Chelsea 0 down at the Vitality Stadium. It was lacklustre FC against the underperforming Blues when these two met. Another 0-0 draw. Another day where Chelsea didn't win away from home. Now, we make no secret of it. I obviously have followed Chelsea for a very long time. I think it was 1987 the last time, Andy, that I witnessed 3 wins in 20.
Yes, that was just before my time.
You did all right. You actually, at one stage, I remember there's an interview in your, it was the first season in the Premier League, where you're up there.
We were.
You're up there about sort of Christmas time saying, you said, why not, when you were asked about challenging for the title?
Foolishly said that.
I think we finished 12th.
Very foolishly, Kev. Got dragged into saying something stupid. No, look, I'm underwhelmed. It's kind of how I'm feeling about them. I know they've had so much change, and I know it's. I mean, the
squad is unbelievable.
The team that Poch has got, the team that he's got at the minute, though, is not what he would have had in his wildest dreams when he first started getting contacted by the Chelsea hierarchy about this job.
It's honestly like looking at a development squad with a couple of senior pros in it.
It is.
And when I did the list of 12 players that weren't available for them, because you had like kids on the bench no one ever heard of this weekend.
Yeah.
No disrespect to those kids. Obviously, we know that they're Chelsea Academy graduates and they're obviously very talented players. But this is the Premier League. This is the big boys league. You need proper seasoned pros if you're going to achieve anything. And they just haven't got them.
But this is the irony. They've made so many signings, they've spent so much money, and yet they've still ended up in a position where they're thin on the ground. But I think...
Thin on the ground, but even the 12 that were out today, you wouldn't look at them and go, oh yeah, those were all my match winners. Okay, Caicedo, all right. But apart from that, you're not looking at that whole group going, oh yeah, seasoned pros there. There's the stardust.
And the big issue they've got is they've brought in a lot of these very promising young talents, but these are promising young talents who at their individual clubs have had a spell of being told, you're amazing, you're the best player in this team, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. Then they all get brought together and have this situation where, oh, I'm not the top dog anymore. Suddenly I've got to really scrap for my place, and they're not used to it.
No.
They're not used to it. So suddenly there's this ramping up of pressure in a dysfunctional team that hasn't been winning games for ages. A new manager who is very, very good, and I have no doubt that he'll get there in the end. But it's a very uncomfortable watch at the moment. And I think the perfect example is poor old Nicholas Jackson. Because yes, this is a great opportunity for him, but ultimately you've hung your hat on a centre forward who's had half a good season for Villarreal.
Yeah, he got 9 goals in 8 games at the end of last campaign.
And the talent is there, but we have no idea how good he can be, no idea what his ceiling is. And Chelsea is saying to him, could you just go and get us 10, 15, 20 Premier League goals, please? It's so unreasonable.
Kev, I like Poch, and I think he's a good coach. I do like him. How many young players, right? Go back to his Tottenham days. How many young players, and then subsequently at PSG, how many young players did he have at any one time that he was really all bringing them through at either of those clubs?
I think at Tottenham you could make a case for saying there was quite a young
Dele
core
Alli
to the group.
Yeah.
Dele Alli had that. That was with Poch, was it not?
Yeah.
Dele Alli. I mean, I might be very wrong here, but I'm thinking in my mind.
I mean, I'm trying to. I don't know how.
Well, I'm thinking certainly not Alderweireld.
What year was it that he started at Tottenham?
But what I'm saying is, it's not Alderweireld and Vertonghen because they played every week.
Yeah.
It wasn't Walker and Danny Rose. They played every week, right? It wasn't Moussa Dembele. He played all the time. Dele Alli played in there maybe with one other. Harry Kane had already come through to a degree under Harry at the end a bit.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, he's been given this glut of this pool of talent, this young talent that he's now got to not only try and improve but knit together. I'm not sure he's ever done it before.
Well, I think authority is a big issue as well. The reason I say that is, if you look at Tottenham and Southampton before that, he's a project coach, right? He gets time to build something, to build a scheme, to make sure he's got the players who can play that and who will play that for him. So he had the time to do that. And I know him and Daniel Levy didn't always get on. He wanted more backing, didn't get that. He's not alone in that as a Tottenham boss. But, you know, they rubbed along together okay. He goes to Paris as a guy who needs time to bed things in. was never, ever going to get that Paris. And it was a disaster, really.
Yeah.
Because he failed to win the league in the first season. I know he was up against it. And then second season he won it, but they were underwhelming. And they went, here's Messi, here's Neymar, here's Mbappe. Can you make that team work? No chance. Absolutely no chance of getting a cohesive team. But now it's different because he's at Chelsea.
I'd rather have Neymar, Mbappe and Messi and say, make this team work, than, with all due respect, Jackson and Malagusto and
you can't have
Chokwu or whatever.
But the problem is, at Champions League level, which is where Paris are judged, there was no way of having a workable team, ultimately, because you've got 3 guys up top who are not going to work against the ball. So the interesting thing for me is going to be, how much authority will he be given with all of these young star players who've been brought in? So what happens when he says, well, Enzo Fernandez isn't on great form at the moment, I'm just going to drop him for a couple of games. And he starts knocking on the boss's door. And he says to Caicedo, I thought you'd be a bit better than you have been. And he gets dropped for a couple of games. What happens then?
It is funny you say that, because the organisation spent the last 2 hours of the transfer window trying to flog Conor Gallagher. And ever since then, Conor Gallagher's been the captain of the football club. Almost a little bit, and actually the 2 days before when they played against Wimbledon, they gave him the captain's armband as well. Almost as if Poch was saying, I actually don't want him to leave. Is there any chance that you could not sell this asset, please? That would be nice.
They're miles off it. Chelsea are, look, the truth of the matter is they are miles away from where they would want to be themselves and where they would feel comfortable. But from the teams at the top of the division at the moment, they are an awful long way away from that.
Cheers, Andy. That's made me feel a lot better. Let's move on. Oh, Bournemouth. We should talk a little bit about them. Iraola, I think they're quite happy with the points total, despite the fact that they've not really put that much on the board. But they're in a situation where they've got 3 points from 3 draws over the course of the season. But the teams that they've played, it'd be quite a tough start for them, really. So hopefully they'll put more points on the board going forward. They trust him, I think. I
feel it goes back to what we were saying before, though, about Ten Hag. You need to show players that the methods work. Yeah. So it's okay, digging out. You're right, they've had a tough start. But he does need that first win sooner rather than later.
They had chances, didn't they? They had chances. I was listening to Zabani, the centre-half.
Yes, he came on with us,
He came on with you. You was interviewing him, Sam. And when he said, it's a good point against Chelsea, it's actually a chance missed, because...
He also did say we need a bit more quality up front.
Did he say that?
Which I thought was quite interesting.
Yeah.
Because I suppose that was their problem.
I think they'll be in the thick of it when come next March, April time. I'm pretty sure they're going to be finding it pretty tough.
This is not the boldest prediction I'll make all season, but I'll tell you who else I think will be in the thick of it. Everton. They were beaten at home. Again, that's 6 defeats in 7 at home now against Arsenal on Sunday afternoon. They made it difficult for Arsenal. Didn't have too many opportunities on goal before Leandro Trossard managed to secure the victory, which is their first victory at Goodison Park since 2017. Listen, they had to dig in and get this result, Arsenal, if they want to be considered title challengers, I think.
I thought they were fine. I didn't think they were sparkling, but I thought they were fine. I thought they were in control. It was a little bit laborious on the ball at times. I think that was the only thing I would say, that it needed to be quickened up a little bit. So they had long stretches of possession, but that's quite tough when a team's sitting in and not showing any ambition to come out at all. That can be quite tough, but I thought they were calm, didn't think they panicked. I thought they were worthy winners. I thought Everton, as diligent and dogged as they were without the ball, I thought were utterly hopeless on the ball. The most basic passes, Onana, who I do like in general, works ever so hard without the ball. At least 5 or 6 times, a basic 5-yard pass he couldn't make. It was extraordinary.
And these are the least of Everton's problems at this moment in time, because despite the fact that we heard on Friday that they'd agreed a takeover deal with 777 Partners, who also own relegated Hertha Berlin and bottom of the La Liga table Sevilla and relegated Vasco da Gama, they have now, there's now some clause in the contract with MSP Capital, who loaned them 350 million quid, which says if there's a change of control at the top of the organisation, then those loans can be recalled immediately. So now the takeover is in a state of flux because 777 are saying, well, we're not paying 350 million quid of your money back to somebody else. And we can't restructure that deal, then we can't go through with the takeover.
Well, Kev, what's the idea of 7-7? Are they trying to create that Watford scenario?
They've got loads of clubs. They've got Vasco da Gama, Genoa, Sevilla, Hertha Berlin, Melbourne Victory. Melbourne Victory, who are one of the biggest clubs in Australia, and finished 11th.
And those clubs already, do they already trade players from one to the other? Do they do that
I think that will be the plan long term. My concern about them, is I have myriad concerns.
My concerns about these are multiple.
Yeah. Look, the first thing is, if I was an Everton fan, would I want them to be part of a multi-club group? No, absolutely not. That's my football club. I don't want them either being prioritised over somebody else or somebody else prioritised over them. That's the first thing. Second thing is their record of these various clubs is appalling. Hertha went down. They didn't have a lot of time to turn it around, but Hertha went down. Genoa went down and then had to come back up. Vasco da Gama in Brazil have made the worst start ever to a league season in their history, and they're in the relegation zone. There have been protests at Standard Liège because they've made a bad start to the season.
And
protests at Hertha, protests at Red Star Paris. So that's a major problem.
Sevilla at bottom of the league.
That is before you even get to
the rest of it.
Allegations, and they are just allegations at
Which
this
they
stage,
refute.
but they're worth mentioning. There are US court papers in which there have been allegations of breach of contract, fraud. So they are to be answered. So overall,
there's a lot going on.
I feel it's a negative picture.
It's not great to be an Everton fan at this moment in time. West Ham beaten at home by Manchester City by 3-1. It was a game littered with close calls and chances at both sides. I thought West Ham approached the game really well, actually. They did it in the manner that if you're going to play Manchester City, this is how you do it.
Yeah.
You soak, you sit, you strike.
Yeah.
And they did. They scored, and they could have scored another goal as well. Edison's had to make a couple of good saves.
Great save from Zuma.
Yeah.
Brilliant save. Brilliant. That was a. I've seen, to be fair, I've seen David Moyes' West Ham team against City at the London Stadium and been disappointed with maybe the way that they've gone about it. Just sat there. There was much more to them at the weekend. Much more to them. I thought they did pose a threat. And I think if you're going to sit and soak, that's fine. But you have to have a punch at some point, and it's got to be a strong one, and it's got to be one with some intent behind it. I thought they had that. City were always going to dominate proceedings as they do, and it was no surprise to see them eventually come out on top. Haaland missed 2 or 3 unbelievable chances.
He's rubbish, him, and he's no good.
He might have missed about 7 chances, but he got one eventually.
He got one.
And boy, Jeremy Doku, he was really shy in his first game, according to Pep. He's like, he's just a bit too timid. Well, he wasn't timid on Saturday, was he? He was absolutely terrific.
And especially when he made the mistake for the goal,
yeah.
Miscontrolled it.
And then went and scored in the second half.
And he didn't really sprint back, I didn't think, to try and make amends for that, but come out for the start of the second half and got himself a lovely goal.
And that's the talent that they've identified, because he's always had that. He's always had that ability, take people on one-on-one, really isolate defenders. The only issue up until now, and he's still really young, the only issue up until now has been end product. That seems to be being fixed already.
Maybe with Mahrez going, they need to have, maybe Pep feels, Kev, he needs to have a genuine kind of winger in there rather than a Grealish or rather than a Bernardo. That
variation.
Does a different job for the team entirely.
Yeah. Can carry the ball, can't he? Can carry it out of trouble.
Great at dribbling. I think it was the highest number of dribbles in the French league last year.
Always looking to run at people. How good's Alvarez, by the way?
Good.
Mate.
Again, intelligent
second
footballer.
pick in my fantasy draft. Haaland was my first pick. Alvarez was my second. How did I get away with that?
Well, unlucky with the free kick he hit.
Yeah.
It's rattled the post.
Sensational.
Aston Villa came back to beat Crystal Palace by 3-1. Best wishes to Roy Hodgson. He was taken ill before the game, so we do hope that he is okay.
Indeed.
Aston Villa actually weren't okay for a lot of the game. Crystal Palace got themselves in front. Odson Edouard, who's turned into a goal-scoring machine. I think he's almost scored as many goals this season. He did in the entirety of last season. He only needs one more. He put them in front, but then Aston Villa came back.
What a goal. What a goal.
Duran.
Goal of the weekend, John Duran. What a strike that is. I love that strike because it's a decent ball into him and he hits it on the up as the ball's still... He does, sometimes on a half volley, Sam, you've got to wait for it a bit. Just wait for it to start to dip and then hit it. He hits it as it's still rising. They can go anywhere.
If it's not for the net, that blows a hole in the
Oh,
stand, doesn't it? I mean,
that is such a great goal.
Great goal.
Fantastic
Diaby
goal.
looks lively as well. Diaby looks
Doesn't
like
They've
the
won
Diaby
9 out of
from
9 at
Leverkusen.
home now, Aston Villa.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive.
Do you know, I was at Villa Park recently doing a function with some of the with John Gregory and Brian Little and Tony Morley, Tony Daly, Nigel Spink. There was a few of us there, got together, and we were all sort of asked a bit about whether we think can Villa, and I genuinely feel that something is happening at last at Villa. Something is happening, Kev. I feel that. I feel like something positive is starting to happen there, rather than it perhaps being just a flash in the pan.
The key's going to be the away form, right?
Yes.
Because if you look historically at Unai Emery, his Sevilla team would have these incredible runs at home and would be utterly wretched away from home.
Really?
Villarreal were pretty much the same. The Ceramica, really good. Away from home, not so good. So that's a challenge he's got to overcome.
And if you look at the record, that's replicated here as well. You know, they're not as great away from home as they are.
So I think the players he's got, I think fans at Villa Park are going to have a whale of a time. But he's got a higher quality of players at Villa now.
Do you think he'll win him a trophy?
Yes.
Do you think it'll be the Conference League by any chance?
Yes.
Might
But he will want to. And he's one of those managers, actually, that is quite shameless about saying, I'm going to junk the league for a bit because I want to win that.
Right.
And he's done that a few times. And he did it to his cost with Arsenal. Because he missed out on the Champions League, didn't he? Because he was pushing for the Europa League.
They got to the final in Baku.
What
was the result? I can't remember. I went to that game. I did that game. I can't remember. What was the result?
What one was that?
Baku, 2019, I think it was. Oh, it was such a lovely...
It's quite a tight game, wasn't it?
4-1, I think it was
Yes.
that night. Yeah, those were the days.
I was there that night.
Yeah, so was I. It was brilliant. What a great place Baku is, by the way. Newcastle 1, Brentford 0. Callum Wilson with penalty. Was it a penalty?
I don't think so.
See, I didn't think so, but then Perry was going on at me all day saying it was. I thought he runs into the goalkeeper.
I thought Anthony Gordon was absolutely very, very clever there in inducing the contact, and I thought he was quite smart there.
So Thomas Frank, when he says, I don't normally complain about penalties, but we have a keeper clearly pulling out of making a challenge and a player cleverly leaving his leg in, I expect an apology from the PGMO.
Well,
is he right?
whether he'll get an apology, but he certainly gets my support in terms of, I didn't think it was a pen.
But Flecken got away with one with that ridiculous
that should have been a
foul
goal.
that was given. That should have been a goal. He just misses the ball completely.
Yes.
So the referee evened it out by managing to get both of them
Well
wrong,
done.
maybe.
Luton Town lost again away at Fulham. Harsh lesson for them because they had some chances in the game. They got close, but not close enough. Rob Edwards felt that they were unlucky and should have been awarded a penalty in the game. But yeah, it's another game. No points on the board for the newly promoted side. And that big game against Wolves is lingering very close.
I do think sometimes newly promoted teams, and whether Luton fall into this bracket, I didn't see them last year in the Championship live. I didn't see them, but people tell me they were quite a direct team.
I did the playoff final and they were very direct in that game.
Right.
I did the 2 semi-finals as well.
I saw them at Stamford Bridge earlier in the season, where in the second half they had a 10-minute spell where you felt that you just felt they were starting to get up to speed with the game, and it was because they started to get it wide and get it in the box.
Yeah.
They often play with two big guys, and they started to get it there and deliver it in the box, Kev, and try and go from there.
And Morris is really good in the air. He causes problems, doesn't he?
Yes, he does. But for most of that Chelsea game, I was thinking they're still trying to play. They're trying to look like a team rather than just be themselves. And I think Rob needs to. You could worry all night long about how good the team you're playing against in the Premier League and their strengths and this and that. I think Luton have to start really focusing on what they do very well. And if that's putting it in there and getting after it and squeezing the game, then do it and commit to it. I think at the moment they're getting caught a little bit between
He almost needs to
stools.
have a Steve Cooper moment from last year where he got to sort of 3 or 4 games in and went, hold on a second.
Yeah.
We've got to play this way because if we keep doing this, we're not going to do anything.
No, not going to do anything. And that, I kind of feel that's where they are. They need to be a little more dynamic. They need to potentially, not all the time, of course, but don't be afraid to to use what served them very well previously.
It needs to be awkward to play against, right?
Of course you do.
Because if you can't outplay teams, and with the best will in the world, and all respect to them, and I know they brought in Ross Barkley, who is a technical player, but ultimately, if you're going to try that game, you're going to lose most weeks. But if you're really going at teams and slinging the ball in, and that did cause Fulham problems, that's the way to do it.
Sheffield United at the weekend, long throw, wasn't it? Big booming throw into the box.
Exactly.
Ball bobs down, someone smacks one in the back of the net. Against Man City, Sheffield United, for the last 10 minutes, they nearly equalised. Should have equalised, shouldn't they? Could have equalised from just creating a bit of chaos by putting it in the box. It's the one area that lots of Premier League teams don't have to actually face an awful lot of nowadays, is teams being quite blatant and quite direct against them. I think Luton need to.
Listen, it's been great. We could talk all night about all of these different subjects. We didn't even get to our nerdy rules chat about Beto's.
That would have been another hour.
Can we just do it, just a little bit of it, right? Because we're really nerdy.
Yes.
And Andy, I think, sort of agrees with me a little bit on this, right? So there's a goal that's disallowed in the Everton versus Arsenal game, okay? And it's disallowed because Nketiah's in an offside position. It's a marginal offside, but he is offside according to those lines, right? Fine. But the reason it's disallowed is not because of the fact that it's nothing to do with that in a sense. Well, it is, he's offside, but it's to do with who plays the ball. And on the halfway line, Gabriel plays the ball to his right, but standing to his right is Beto, who comes across, swipes the leg and blocks the ball and changes the direction of the ball completely. Instead of going there, it goes right down the throat of the pitch and into Nketiah. Now, the laws of the game, and we know the laws of the game, so please don't at me and tweet me, you've been doing that already, suggest that that's a block and therefore that's not a deliberate action. But that block scenario is on a list of a number of different clarifications and guidelines from FIFA, not laws, right? The law says it's a deliberate action. Now,
well, he deliberately tried to block the ball.
Yes.
He ran
But
towards
it's got
Gabriel.
to be a controlled action.
well, he decided to run from one side of the pitch to close down a defender. He's changed. I think this law, this clarification, was brought about for events that happen, ricochets, the quick ricochets and blocks that happen on the edge of the penalty area, not on the halfway line. They're sort of like for little nicks here and there where someone's in an offside position, not in a complete direction of travel. The ball's going over there and it's gone 50 yards that way.
But you can't change the guidance based on where the event
But you can
happens.
use your common sense. It's not an exact science, is it? I mean, in that scenario, that's not offside, is it? I mean, he's not.
Right.
It's him playing the ball. It's totally Beto's fault that the ball goes to Nketiah.
Just tell me how the VAR worked. So what happened? So
the
referee
gives the goal.
The
VAR
VAR tell him to come and have a look at it.
No, the VAR checks the offside.
They check
and they
it.
say that he's offside, and then they deem that Gabriel plays the ball.
Did the ref go and have a look or not?
I don't think
Did he go and have a
He
look?
didn't go to the monitor, no.
No.
I wonder, actually, that's a good point. Because surely that's a subjective
Do you know-
decision as to whether something's a deliberate action. So he should have gone and checked
One
it.
thing I do honestly feel quite strongly about with all these VAR, the minute the referee feels that something is taking a while, get yourself over to that monitor.
Yeah, we'll look at Darren
Why
England looking at the monitor and keeping to his decision yesterday. I thought that was really brave of him. Even if we don't agree with the ultimate decision.
I don't agree either.
Right? But at least he had the kahunas to sit there and go, do you know what? No, I disagree. I'm going to stick with my decision.
One person who's standing out in the middle of the field, the referee, and he's being told this, told that, and he might be thinking, I hope those guys have got. I hope that they've got this one right. I hope that they've made the right decision on this call. I just think the minute VAR start having a lengthy look, someone in that Stockley should say to the referee, "Get over to the monitor. We need you involved in this," and that's only right.
It stops me and Kev sitting in the canteen for 10 minutes going through the laws and clarifications.
Being dweebs.
And being complete nerds. But anyway, thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate it. Thank you to Andy Townsend and to Kevin Hatchard. I'll be back very soon. Premier League All Access returns with Crookie and I and Scott Minto on Thursday as we preview all the weekend's footballing action. Look back on the Champions League. There's Champions League football all week on talkSPORT, so make sure you join us for Newcastle's massive game against Milan. We're looking forward to that. Milan battered at the weekend by Inter. Will Newcastle be a success in San Siro? You'll find out with me and Alan Pardew, 5:45 on Tuesday. We've got Wednesday night football for you. Thursday night, we've got Europa League football for you as well, involving Liverpool. It's all football on the All Access station. Premier League All Access back on Thursday.